Hi, my name is Lauren Lane, and for my EDU 104 book project, I chose Educating Esme. And I found a lot of things really endearing about this book, even as someone who's not sure they want to be a teacher, but was just kind of like exploring the idea. There were a lot of really good scenarios that are just like really real and you can't make up. So that's what I really liked, is like the candidness of the book. My talking points are going to start on page 7. And it was the way that she talked about ideas when she was trying to get like the fairy tale festival. And the way she talks about it, it's really relatable because people think you're always looking for their approval when you present like a new idea or like a new way of doing something, when they're really just knocking it either because it's not their idea or like they don't care enough to just let you do it. They almost kind of want to see you fail because they didn't think about it, or it's just not something that they're super passionate about that they could realize that somebody else was. So they would rather try to tear you down than just get out of your way. And I think that's a big idea with teaching with people that don't necessarily want to do it the conventional way. Like, she's very unconventional throughout the whole book, and that's something that I really admired. My next point is on page 26. I found it really inspiring about how she talked about destiny and how while those kids were growing as like little people, growing to be 5th graders, she was growing to be a teacher, and now it was their time to come together and grow with each other. And the way that they just ended up there together, she knew that that was how it was supposed to be and that she was supposed to be there, and that's something that I admired of her as a teacher. On page 29, I really liked how she renamed the subjects. A lot of times, especially at that middle grades, 5th grade level, kids have this idea that they're good at things and they're not good at other things and that they can't change. The concept of her changing the names of the subjects kind of throws them off guard and think like, oh, maybe I'm not very good at remembering dates in history, but time travel sounds so cool. And maybe I could be good at that, and maybe I could find that interesting. So that's something that I really liked, and it can really increase their confidence and curiosity. Probably my favorite concept in the whole book was on page 30, and it was the idea of the trouble basket. I know, like, me as a 5th grader, I had a lot of, like, outside things that affected my work, and 5th grade was probably, like, my worst year as a kid. So I loved the idea of her really getting to the bottom of what these kids are going through and like knowing that it's not always just them. They're not just like a problem kid. They're not just not doing their work. They're not lazy. There are other things that are affecting this that are making them maybe struggle a little bit more or feel out of place, and that all contributes to maybe them not doing their best. And it also, I like the idea of them leaving it at the door and her being there to carry it with them. I like the symbolism in that. And it helps because kids don't necessarily come to a teacher at that age and confront them and say like, oh, like this is what's bothering me. But it's all of them coming from the same level. Every kid fills out that piece of paper. Every kid like turns it in like at the same time, and that makes it so more comfortable because they're all coming from the same level and they see that everyone else is doing it too. Her idea that I thought was great was the thinking cap. It's very literal, but at the same time, it's great because at that age, kids get intimidated when they're put on the spot to be asked a question. I know that, like, at that age, if I were, like, to read something, sometimes you need a minute to take it in and you don't want to just give a dumb answer. So you give the, oh, I don't know, or, like, sometimes you say you didn't even read it because you don't want to sound dumb because maybe you haven't had enough time to think about it. So I really like that because it gives them a little bit more time to be confident in their answers and to like actually think about it and give themselves an opportunity to take that in and get more out of it. Because when like kids answer a question and in depth and when they're proud of it, like, or at least in my experience, I was always like more capable of remembering that information because I was like, oh, I thought about it this way, and it helped me. To kind of wrap it up, the thing that I admired throughout the book, the entire theme for me was her spirit and her sassiness, because no matter what I end up doing, even though it's probably not going to be teaching, this was something that I had to explore, and I definitely got something out of it, mostly from this book, because her spirit and her sassiness just keep her from getting burnt out. She doesn't have to be conventional, and she doesn't let the little things get to her that oftentimes I know, like, teachers they just get so burnt out because they're afraid of their peers, like, because throughout the whole book you see these other faculty members coming to her saying, like, what are you doing, or why are you doing it like this, and she doesn't care, which is so awesome. Some examples of that are, like, her wanting the kids to call her Madame instead of Mrs. or Miss, because it's a little harmless, unconventional thing that brightens her day. Even though, like, the other faculty members don't accept it, it just makes it easier for her, and there's nothing wrong with it. And also, another example of her spirit was when the little girl gave her the sari, and she wore it all day, and that little girl felt so great. And the other faculty members are like, oh, what are you pretending to be today? She wasn't. She was just making somebody's day a little easier, and I admired that a lot. So even though these other teachers don't necessarily get it,